All right, greetings. And Jill has made the command decision that we're going to do this outside tonight, so I'm in. And you can see from our tire, or my tire, it's kind of cold for a June 18th or 19th, is it? 20th. It's kind of chilly. We're doing okay. A public service announcement that I'd like to get out there, I haven't done this in a while, is our hog harvest is going to be November 1st. And hog harvest is where we do an instructional on, I guess they call it nose to tail sometimes. But when we start out with live pigs, and it's a 3-day event, it's an instructional event. You come to it on Friday noon, and then we start slaughtering hogs about 1 or 2, depending on how many people that we have. We do a scald and scrape on them, and then we open them up, get them split in half, and then laid out for the night so they can cool off a little bit. And then Saturday morning we break them down into what's known as primal cuts, and then some of those primal cuts we take down further from there Saturday. Sunday is dedicated pretty much to prep work for curing and sausage making and things like that, although we do cover it like sort of all the way through. So you might want to check into that. You can go to bakersacres.com and just look under Anyone Can Farm, and that's where the sign up is for it. And I think so far we have 6 or 8 people, and we figure per 6 people we slaughter 1 pig, and so each group is 3, and you have a half a pig to work with. So this is a really good thing for you to know how to do. I mean, learning how to raise pigs is a great thing, but being able to take it to the next step and turn it into table fare is a very important thing to know how to do. And it's, you know, it's not like we're super people or anything. We've become super people, but you know, we started out when we started doing this. I couldn't slaughter a pig. I couldn't do any of that. You know, it took, all these things took time. They're all a bunch of little steps that we take. And then when you get to be like around close to 60 years old, wow, you know how to do a lot of things, but it's all these little things that you stack up along the way. All right, so this is a good thing to learn how to do. If you can do this, you can slaughter a rabbit. If you can slaughter a rabbit, you can probably slaughter a cow. You know, it's just, there's some logistical changes that you have to make. But once you've gone through the process once, you'll understand it more, and just a few inquiries will get you where you need to be in order to be able to do this, right? And it's a good thing to know how to do. And we have a lot of fun with the class. You really do need to stay in the area. There's hotels and stuff downtown, no more than 20 miles away. We start just after noon on Friday. Saturday we start at 9, and Sunday we start at 9. Sunday is a shorter day. People are usually getting out of here by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And then all the pig is for sale. We make it available at a, you know, kind of a special rate so that people can take it home with them and do what they need to do with it, try it out. So those of you that are interested in getting into Mangalitsa, it would be a good thing to know and see firsthand how it's cut, and discuss some of the cuts and the methods of slaughter and methods of preservation and things like that. So I wanted to kind of think of a subject to talk about tonight to start off with. And I didn't have to think about it very long, because it's been something that's been in our face all spring, and that is the weather. we in the Midwest are experiencing extremely high water tables. And on top of the extremely high water tables, we're also getting a lot of precipitation. Okay? Uh, it's raining more than it's not raining. And that makes things pretty difficult for people that have to get things planted, get things harvested. And, across the Midwest, there's a lot of fields that have not been planted yet. And it's questionable, whether they will get planted. We we don't know. Some guys are going to roll the dice if they have a couple of days where they can actually get in the fields. The fields are really muddy, and there's no place for the water to go. It's strange, actually, because I don't see the rivers and creeks and stuff really high. It's just that there's just water in the fields. So if that's the way this is going to go, it's not like we can just go into the back room and pull all this feed corn off the shelf. It doesn't exist. So if our fields don't get planted, extrapolate this out, there's some serious problems. And we're still in that gray area where, well, maybe they'll be able to pull it out if it just gets real dry and the water table drops. But then you think the other way there, what if it rains right through July? Then you can't plant in August, or you can't plant in late July and expect to even get a crop. So, things are a little on edge in the farming community right now. And I'm surprised we're not hearing more about it. Right? So what does this bring to mind? Or, I'm a little closer to the situation than maybe a lot of you, but what it brings to my mind is the subject of prepping. All right. Now we're running a small farm operation or a homestead, and how does farming fit into the prepping mindset? I'm sure a lot of you know what that is. I kind of lost interest in it because I thought, well, yeah, there's things that can happen, and we're watching something happen right now, But a lot of the prepper types are selling kind of equipment and encouraging to stock up on canned goods and things like that, which I think it's a good thing. But it's not something that really appeals to me because we provide all of our own food. I've got enough cattle right there out on grass now that if everything went to heck, I could probably get by for 2 or 3 years on just the cattle that I have by butchering them and eating them as we need to. But that's me. So I'm not about to go out and buy a bunch of pork and beans and put it on the shelf. It's just that's me. So I've kind of lost interest in it, and my feeling on it is all the equipment in the world is not going to help you if you don't have the skills, right, to do what you need to do. And prepping is you're preparing for some sort of natural disaster or man-made disaster, an economic crisis, zombie apocalypse, and you're preparing for that, and your hopes that your preparation will get you through that so you can go back to normal life. But some people get really caught up in it, and they're hoping for natural disaster, and they're hoping for the zombie apocalypse, and then buying guns and all that stuff, learning how to run through the woods with guns in hand and stuff. And it doesn't really appeal to me, but prepping does. And here's where I come down on this. So first of all, I was a Boy Scout, so that's the Boy Scout motto: is be prepared. If you're going to go someplace, you put gas in your car. You're prepared to go there. So I'm constantly prepping, like if I know I've got to do something this weekend and I'm going to be using equipment that takes fuel, I'm going to get the fuel. I'm going to prepare to get it. if I have, several hundred chickens out on the field and I want to bring them to the place where we can get them slaughtered and in the freezer, I have to make sure that we have the correct amount of feed. So I'm constantly prepping, but when I say prepping, I'm not talking about zombie apocalypse, and I'm not going to show you how to sight in a 240 or something like that. It's just not what I'm about. But I do think that your homestead could come in right handy. Right now, when things are kind of normal, it's a great part-time job, and it's a good medium for you to learn some things that could kind of help pull you through if times got tough. So, I guess what I'm thinking that I would like people to do is, where I'd like the conversation to go tonight is, how do you develop a mindset that gets you to a place where when you're having a conversation at the table like we were tonight about the corn situation and the flooding and all this stuff, okay, how does this affect us as a family? And what do we need to do to, be able to navigate this storm? How do we do that? And for us, in the place where we are in life, it's really going to have an effect. I where I'm kind of a prepper and like to be prepared, I listen to lots of things. I listen to the global warming people. I also listen to the solar minimum people. And I don't see the global warming thing panning out, you know. But I do see the solar minimum thing panning out. It seems like we're getting much cooler and we're getting a lot more rain and things like that. So when I'm doing my planning for what I'm going to plant for my market, and my market is my family, my animals, and my friends and people around me, people that I do a little bit of business with, what do I need to plant in order to be able to adapt to a cooler, wetter farm environment? What do I need to do? So I've been moving that way for a long time. So long as everybody else is planting tons and tons of corn, why should I? You know, if they're planting tons of it and a lot of it is just going by the wayside, it's there if I need it. So why shouldn't I figure out something else that I could do in case the corn kind of goes down like it appears like it's going to this year? So what I've been doing is I've been thinking about grazing quite a bit because grass grows well in this weather. Actually, I'm getting a lot of grass growing now because it's wet. Will I be able to get it off my bottom fields where it's really wet? I had to go down there today. The cows got out. I had to go down there on my motorcycle, and there was 6 inches of water on those fields. Right? I could have done better with one of those airboats down there than I could with my motorcycle. And when I drove back, I had to stay out of where I drove down, or I was going to be in a rut. So will I be able to get hay equipment down there and cut that? I don't know. I couldn't do it a week from now or 2 weeks from now. There's no way. It's just way too wet. But I could walk down there and I can set up temporary fences and they can direct harvest that hay for me, right? So it won't go to waste and the animals will be getting fed for the duration of the summer. Doesn't really help me a lot when it comes to storing it for the winter, but I'll have to work around that, I guess. I do have fields, some that are higher, and I think they'll dry out sooner. And even if I have to cut hay in August, that's okay, if it dries up by then. So we're able to do a little bit of, contingency planning for our farm operation. And I think that it should be part of the homesteaders' conversation, contingency planning. Okay, what are we going to do if all of a sudden we get way more snow by 3 times the amount than we ever did. What are we going to do then? What are we going to do if there's this terrible drought? And in the farming world, these things happen. You know, we don't have to be concerned with economic downturn. You know, these things happen. You know, they just do. But we've kind of found, like, when there's something that's going on that's going to be bad for the majority of the farmers around here, it's going to be bad for them. It might not be bad for farmers like us, because if they don't have the feed corn, let's say, for their cattle, they may have to get rid of a lot of cattle. And we butcher cows. So there may be, you know, additional work for us. That's just an example. Or calves right now are cheap as can be. Who knows, maybe they will end up being free, and we'll have, you know, enough forages planted where we can, we can, get 20 of them started and then, sell them off as the winter goes by. Something like that. There could be opportunities, because right now everybody is going one way. You know, everybody's planting corn and milking black and white cows, and we thought we were going to do that when we got here, but we didn't. We went a different way, and so we're not as locked into that as everybody else. And that conversation can go far and wide. Right now, I'm keeping it close to, these things, that affect me right here on this farm. But if I had to expand it to just some of the people that are in this group, I can think of a lot of you have poultry, and a bag of feed, poultry feed, is not cheap. I think a 50-pounder is probably 12 to 15 bucks. And if there is a feed shortage, you can bet the last people to get that feed is going to be like Tractor Supply, right? They won't have any of it, and you may be forced to go to something else. That, oh, I'm sure it'll be cheaper. No, probably not. It's going to be more expensive. So that's something to think about. Now, if I raise a lot of poultry too, because we depend on them for eggs and meat. Through the winter time, we do feed some corn. We also have a junk bread contract, and we feed them a lot of that. But there's other things you can feed them, and you can grow that. And you could start it now and get it harvested before the ground freezes, and you could actually store that and feed it all winter long. And one of those crops is called a mangle. It's a little seed. Looks like a little star almost, or like a little sea creature, and it'll grow a bulb on it that's 2 feet long and like this around. So you got to plant them carefully, but you can grow a lot of those. Worst comes to worst, you can eat them. So the things that we need the most. And we can't live very long without any air. We can't live very long without any water, and not very long without food. But the first, if air goes, there's nothing I can do to make sure we have plenty of air around here. That's out of my league. Water, I want to make sure we have water for our animals. So bad storms and things like that take trees down. Especially here, we've got a lot of trees over the lines, so we lose power quite a bit. So I have a generator, and I have a backup to the generator, and I actually have a backup to the backup, because if with the amount of animals that I have here, if I don't have water, I have real problems. Now, the backup to that would be a bucket in each hand and walking down to the pond and coming up and filling things. But that can really disrupt the whole operation if I have to do something like that. A few weeks ago, all of a sudden, no water. Right after lunch, Jill's like, hey, the water's not working. So I go out there, and the pressure tank is pooched, 15 years old, and it finally gave it up. Well, it's buried, so we had to dig it up. We had to dig it up by hand because I don't have any kind of backhoe or anything like that. So we were working on that until the sun went down, and then the next day I had to go find a pressure tank that would fit, and a bunch of plumbing fittings, and it turns out that they don't make them like that anymore, so I had to, well, we had water by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but my animals could not go 24 hours without water. So we have, for the cattle, I always fill like a 275 gallon tank that's full. It stays full all the time. And it still had quite a bit of water in it. Even though it was off for, close to 24, well, over 24 hours the water was off. So I'm prepping for that. I'm getting ready for that. Okay, so we got 20 people in here. I'd like to ask if you folks would give this a thumbs up and also share this. We'd like to get our footprint out there a little bit further and expand the topics that we talk about in this live chat. And, so if you could help me out with that, like and share and hit the bell notification on that. And also,
yeah, the bell makes sure that you get it whenever there's a new video up.
okay. Also, over at Baker's Green Acres Facebook page, I put up videos there from time to time, probably about 3 a week, just about what I'm doing around here. And if you would like to go and check some of those out, it would be helpful if you would subscribe to that and, all that thumbs up and notification and all that stuff. So, without further ado, we don't have to talk just about prepping, but I think it's something that, so long as I bring it up and there's 20 of you here, I hope you will start to think about it and think about this corn thing and think about how it possibly could affect your operation and what you can do to, make sure that you don't have problems. Okay, I'm ready for a question if you have one.
I do.
Okay.
Scroll up and see. Sean. So Sean's question. He's got a pig that's holding her back leg up for about a week now and not wanting to walk around as much. What would you recommend for her?
Tell her to get over it. Well, I guess, I'm sure you tried it, Sean. I would want to grab a hold of that leg, pull the hoof up, and see if there's something stuck in there, like a nail or something. Because they will just leave it there. They won't try and bite it out. And if she's on her feed, if she's getting feed and she's getting water, I would leave it. I had a pig one time. We don't know how it happened. A long time ago, there was a video that I made called it Hog Heaven, and we had just finished fencing in a 6-acre field that's really swampy, and it was really thick. It's the field that my neighbor said, that the previous owner here said, he'd gotten it. My neighbor had owned this for a while, and he got his tractor stuck in there, right? And the man that owned this place said, "You damn fool, I don't even take my mules in there." So that's that field. Well, anyway, I turned some pigs in there, like 40 of them, and one of them got a really bad broken leg. We have no idea how it happened, and then all of a sudden we see this pig, and his back leg is broken bad. It's not a compound fracture, but it's ugly. And by the time we saw it, it was so thick back there. It was pretty well healed up, but it wasn't right, and he wasn't walking on it, and we wound up calling him Tripod. So pigs are durable. If it's going to be a pig that you're going to eat, maybe you'll find that the neighbor boy shot a pellet into his back leg or something when you're biting into a ham slice or something later on. But I wouldn't really worry about it too much unless she goes off of her feed and water. And but if you can look at it, I would try that. There's all kinds of ways to do that. If you have a helper, you can go out there and put a bucket down as if you're going to give that pig something, depending on the size of the pig. And then when the pig puts their face in there, you push the bucket onto the pig, right? And the pig will back up. And you want to do it someplace where you can back that pig into a corner. of some fences or a building or something to where he can't back up anymore, and it kind of immobilizes him for a minute. And that would give you enough time to reach down there and feel around on that back foot and see if there's a nail in there or something. That could be, and just pull it out. You don't have to do anything, just pull it out. All right. There you go, Sean.
All right. Fun on the Homestead wants to know, can you store chicken feed for the future price increases? And what is the best method of storage?
Huh, that's a good question. You know, that would make a lot of sense, because if feed goes from, say, $12.50 up to $24.50, you might want to get I know who this is. You might want to get some warehouse space, right? And buy a whole bunch of chicken feed and put it in there, right? It was like when the 22 ammo went out of sight. If you had a lot of 22 ammo, you could actually make a lot of money off of it. To store it, you just want to make sure, like if you had the money to buy, let's say, a pallet of it, you know, in bags, in 50-pound bags, it would come on a pallet, and then they usually wrap it with that saran wrap to hold it together, and then just make sure it doesn't touch the ground, and definitely needs to be indoors so it doesn't get rained on. And that would do it. That would do it. I buy it by bulk. So we have an outfit that's quite a ways away, nearly 100 miles away, but they truck it to us, and you know, they come in a truck with a big tank on the back, and they can auger it out. And we have a bin that we put it in, and it's, you know, it's up off the ground. It's designed to hold grain for long periods of time. It's totally sealed up. That would be a good thing, you know. And I just thinking about that, we probably want to do that too. Well, we could.
What about, there's a concern about mice.
Yeah, mice are your number one enemy. Even if you're sitting on a pallet, mice can be really bad. And the answer to mice, it's going to sound really dumb, but you can trap them all you want. You're never going to. The only way to get rid of mice is with cats. You've got to have cats, and we have cats. So I actually have some cats here that I'm asked to pedal, right? And today only, we're marking them down from $99.95 to $12.99. $12.99 for these cats. They're beautiful cats, well socialized, ferocious mousers too. We breed them for that. So if you need cats, just PM me. I can hook you up with a cat.
You're gonna have puppies soon too.
Yeah. More puppies. That wasn't supposed to happen.
This was from oh, the mice. Sutton's Days. Her husband live trapped them this past winter and fed them to the chickens. There's a good idea.
Yeah.
Great chicken feed.
You know what? That's almost like one of those perpetual, a sustainable system, right? You have chicken feed that draws the mice. You catch the mice and you feed the mice to the chickens. I don't know. I was thinking about the old one about cats and rats. So you catch rats and you skin them and you feed the carcasses to cats, and then you make gloves out of the rat skin, and out of the cats, and you feed the cats' carcasses to the rats, and it just keeps going. And you're making gloves the whole time, and you're becoming wealthy. So maybe Sutton's Days has something going on there with mouse. Maybe you should raise mice. to feed. There you go. Raise mice. What can you feed to mice that there's a lot of that would bring mice to your place? And it would be food for your chickens. I don't know, that's something to think about. We got a situation going on here where we have a small pond that we irrigate out of, and we bought some bass, and they were about this big when I got them. And we put it in there, we put those bass in there, and then the kids fished there this spring, and they pulled out bass that were this big. So then the poor little pond had nothing in it because the bass were eating everything, every leech, you name it, they were eating it. So we have a creek down by us. So I got a minnow trap, so we can put the minnow trap in there and get a bucket of minnows, and then we put it in and feed it to the bass. We can't really eat the minnows, but the bass can eat the minnows. And then in the fall, when the corn prices are down and the world's going to hell, I'll have bass to eat out of there, and you guys will be starving.
Except now they'll know where to come fish.
Yeah.
All right, this was from earlier this week on the internet. I have swampy ground. This year that's easy. How can I build a corner post without concrete?
Yeah, good question. Swampy ground and trying to do corner posts. I was actually doing fencing today in the rain, and the ground that I was doing it on is kind of high and dry, but I've also done it on very low ground where a 2-foot hole, 2-foot deep hole for a fence post this big, and at the bottom of the hole you have 3 inches of water. So what do you do with that? How do you do that? Okay, what we found that works really, really well is go out to a road where there's gravel, and they call this gravel A20. I don't know why they call it A20, but it's a mix of sand, stone, and clay, right? And it makes a packable gravel that they put on county roads when you live out in the country like we do. So you find some of that and put your post down in that hole, even if it's full of water, and then you start pouring this gravel in, and it's going to take like 2 or 3 buckets, but it will displace the water out of the top, and that's just as soon as you can, you have a packer. And what we use is a piece of steel sucker rod about 6 feet long that's about 5/8 in diameter, and then there's a piece of heavy stock welded to the bottom of it, you know. And that's what we call we jokingly refer to it as the fudge packer around here, but that's what we pack the holes with. If you try to do it with concrete, you're not going to get anything anyway. You won't get ahead because you're just going to have this blob of concrete down in a floppy hole. What the gravel will do is it will expand against the sides of that hole and keep pushing until it hits, it creates a resistance to the hole getting bigger, and it will. It definitely will. So I've got posts that I put in 10 years ago that are going strong, and I put them in water, cedar posts, and they're going strong. We'll make you a deal. On the cats? Yeah, all right. Maybe we'll start breeding cats, Baker's cats. Hey, now there you go. They're easy to breed. Well, what are they good for? We just have to get a market going for cat meat. We could probably put it in little tins, call it tabby.
Horrible.
Sounded
Chelsea. Chelsea from over in Minnesota wanted to know, how can I protect my piglets from coyotes? We have a 3-sided shelter for them.
Yeah. I have coyotes really bad here. The other night we had a full moon, and I was up several times to tell the dogs to shut up because the coyotes are just out of reach of my dogs, and they will just sit out there and howl. And hey, That cat's got a mouse right there. You
Oh yeah, she's bringing it up to
yeah,
the
he's
kittens.
bringing a mouse. Okay, this is great. This is great. Live action mouse catching. So we have them bad. And I have never had a coyote steal a baby pig. We've never had anything take a baby pig that was alive. I had an eagle take a baby pig that was dead one time. And I just happened to catch that. But, I don't think you have to worry about that. But if you do, if you have reason to believe that you need to fear for your piglets for coyotes, then you need to get a Great Pyrenees dog or some sort of guardian dog. I use Great Pyrenees, so they're the ones that I know, and they've done great by us. They do take a little bit of training, you know, and we've had some stories come our way with bad training has not worked out good for some folks, but yeah, that's what I would do. If a coyote is dead set on getting into a building, I don't think there's much you can do to keep them out, especially if they have all night to work at it. But I don't think coyotes are like that. I think they're more mouse and rabbit eaters, baby deer. They'll take down really young deer. But I don't think they would come and fool with a baby pig. Baby pig wouldn't go willingly either. Usually the animals that they take kind of don't fight very much. Although I'm watching this cat kill this mouse right on the other side of this table. That mouse is really fighting. Okay, so that's what I think. Coyotes generally aren't really as bad as people think, at least not
You could speak to
around
Devin's
here.
experience a little bit.
Yeah,
Because they've got those huge coyotes.
yeah.
But
Well, I have a
that's
guy
why he
north
has
of me
two dogs too.
that's had bad problems with coyotes, and he's a sheep guy, so he's got little lambs on the ground, and coyotes definitely will take them. And the mother sheep will just kind of move away, But if you're talking a sow, and she's going to protect her baby pigs, she'll tear a coyote apart.
Turkey question for you.
Okay.
What's the best turkey breed? When do I need to start them to be ready for Thanksgiving?
All right. The best turkey breed, as far as eating goes, I mean, there's all kinds of like bourbons and Narragansetts, and when you see the pictures in the catalogs, they look really cool, but the meat on them is sort of like a wild turkey. And if you've not eaten a wild turkey, there's not much fat, and they're really not much good. They're not much. I mean, you could eat it if you had to, but it's not like you would be, oh boy, wild turkey for dinner. They're not that good. Really not that good. You have to just about stew them to eat them. So the best eating turkey, this is an opinion thing, is going to be either the whites or the bronze. And from a processing point of view, the whites are definitely easier. And once you have the feathers off of them, you can't tell the white from the bronze. So I would go with either of those two. And like we process for people. So if we process a bronze for somebody, and they look like a wild turkey. They're black and white. When you process those for somebody, you have to work a little harder because any of the feathers that get left on are black, so they really stand out. But if you're just gonna learn to process your own turkeys and do it for yourself, those little feathers that you leave on there, they're not gonna make it through the oven. They're gonna get roasted off. So I wouldn't worry about that if you're doing it for yourself. But either of those two, they seem to be about the same once the feathers are off of them. And we've had both, and we have no complaints around here about our turkeys. Turkeys are good foragers. They'll eat a lot of stuff that exists in the environment, where some of the chicken breeds will not. They want They want chicken food, and that's all they want. So turkeys are a good way to go. You know, a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but I think one of the best places to take your wife for a date is probably like Tractor Supply. And sometimes when I'm really wanting to treat her right, I'll take her to Family Farm in Fleet. They have some of the latest country and western music playing over the loudspeaker, and we find it's a really jovial environment, and it's just nice. But if you go there and they're kind of down to the end of what they have for poultry, sometimes they'll cut you a serious deal on that. And if you're ready for them, you can get some some great deals on different kinds of chickens. So they got layers, and they have broilers, and a lot of times they have turkeys, and then they have ducks and geese and stuff like that. So it's a good place to check into. Turkeys are actually, from a prepper's point of view, it's one of the better birds that you can raise because they will eat a lot of things that other poultry will not eat, right? And probably even better than that would be ducks, because I mean, you don't even have to feed ducks; they just find stuff. You know, if you have a little body of water or something, they just find it. All right. Next question, Mom.
Now that it's summer and the animals are out on pasture, do I still need to give them minerals and salt?
Well, if your pasture is good and healthy, no, you shouldn't. You should have all the minerals that you need on a perfect pasture. But let's say that you're not sure that you have all the minerals and salts that you need out there. If you do give it to your animals, they will deposit it on your pasture for you as soon as they're done with it, as soon as it runs through them. Another route you could go is you could take some soil samples and send it in to Logan Labs is who we would use for something like that, and you can figure out what your pasture is missing. And even though you may have beautiful grass out there and things may look good, you can always tweak it to make it better. Okay, so part of prepping is when times are good, instead of saying, well, I'm just going to take the rest of the day off, you dedicate a little bit more time and a little bit more resources to what they call fortifying your position, right? Making your system better than it is. Let's improve it. And there's always things you can do to improve it. So even though your field might be growing some really nice grass and stuff, if you think that you want to make an improvement on something, that's one of the places you can go, and you can pull a soil sample and you can decide what needs to go in there. A lot of times it's something like rock phosphate or lime or salt on your field, or whatever. And Logan Labs can really help you out with that as far as what you need. And then when your animals are out there during the summer when you're grazing, then you know that they're getting what they need, and you're raising this food for you. So when times are good and we have plenty of resources to buy any food that we want and keep ourselves really good and healthy, we should improve the health of the animals that are feeding us as best we can. Because let's say we go through a time where you're having to eat bark for 6 months. If you've got a good strong body, you'll make it through that time. Whereas if you don't, you won't. So if you're preparing to make it through something, you're going to want to use the best, most mineralized resources they can find. So I wouldn't say, if it's a choice between your heart medication and making improvements to your field, I would say, stay on your heart medication And when you get some extra money, then look at the improvements on your field. But there may be other things that you need to do first. So part of prepping definitely is prioritizing. You know, you want to take care of the weak spots in your chain first. You want to fortify those positions first. And then when that's up to speed, well, let's go to the next thing and fortify that, make that even a little bit better, work a little bit better and cleaner, drier, you know, more productive. So there you go. You know, I had a phone call today. I'm just going to expound on this.
Oh, you do have a question about
Do I have a
soil,
question?
about amending a minute.
All right, well, let me just tell you this. I had this phone call today, and it's from somebody that's followed us for a long time and has decided that, yeah, I have this business, but I also want to have a farm, just like you do. I think it's a good way to raise my kids. It's productive. It's a challenge, you know, and this guy wants to challenge his family to, you know, create their own food and their own fun and all that stuff. At times, you're going to get discouraged. It's just a part of this whole thing is discouragement because, like in this family's case, they were having predation problems. So they said, what do we do? Something's coming out of the woods and eating our chickens and our ducks. I said, well, you need a Great Pyrenees dog. So they came and got a dog from me. She calls me today. Hey, my dog is eating my chickens. And so we went through the whole thing of how they're managing this dog, and it became pretty clear that, you know, they got the dog, and then it was a puppy, so you don't have to do much. And then as the puppy got bigger, it started developing problems. They were keeping it shut up in a kennel, and then when the thing would get out, it would be, you know, running around like a puppy, and then a chicken would move, and it would trigger the dog, and the dog would go after the puppy, you know. And finally, you know, they're just kind of fed up, and then said, well, we got to call and find out what's going on. So we're able to say, okay, do this, and then you're going to have to do this, and then do this, and hopefully you can salvage this dog. But I think once they get that figured out, then life's going to look a little bit better, and the discouragement level is going to be a little less. And then you move on to the next thing. Okay. She said to me, well, I put my kids down for a nap, and I need to monitor them with my phone, but I don't have phone, you know, I don't have service on my place, on my farm, so I can't monitor them. All right, let's get that fixed now. That's fixable. And then after that's fixed, then I'd be saying, okay, what's next? What's next that you need to trim here to get this to work? But in the meantime, I said, don't quit. No matter what, do not quit. Do not put the quit button on the table. It's just not there. And when you think about it, once you get into this homesteading lifestyle, how do you quit? It's harder to quit than it is to press on through. You know, by the time you liquidate all this stuff and, you know, change everything so it could be sold and suited to somebody else, it would be so much work. So there was a saying that a friend sent me one time. It was like, we were going through a tough time, and it was, I think it was a Green Beret that said this, and he said, you know, I've thought about quitting 100 times. I've had terrible days, I've had good days, and I've thought about quitting 100 times, but I just never did. Just never got around to quitting. So, got to press on through. That's for sure. We've had tons and tons of discouragement here, and just not going to quit, no matter what. Okay, soil amendment question.
Yeah, the soil question and then a Pyrenees question.
Okay.
Related. Okay, Mike wanted to know, after your soil sample, when is the best time to add what you need, and can animals still be on that field?
Yeah, good question. No, the time to put that stuff on is right away, because any of the amendments that you put on, they're going to be things like rock phosphate. It's not toxic in any at any level. rock dust, green sand. Um, see, what are some of the other common ones that people put on? Lime, um, kelp, believe it or not. Sea salt is another one. So these things are all, benign when it comes to like animals being on it. But yeah, you want to get it on as soon as possible. And then the whole idea is then you check it again and see what took and what didn't. Some stuff's going to run off, some stuff's not going to manifest right away. I'm not sure why that happens, but you may have to be a continual thing until that field gets into a balance. And once it reaches that balance and you're growing on it, and then you're going to be amending probably with compost and things like that. But see, the field, it's designed to increase on its own. So it's not like if you cut off fertilizer that the field's just going to go to hell. The field is designed to work like a human body does. Like we're regenerative, right? This is not the same hand that I was born with. It's not even the same hand that I had 5 years ago. It's all regenerated and moved off. The dead stuff sloughs off and the new stuff that comes in. I think they say your liver regenerates every 5 months or so. That's one of the quickest regenerating organs that you have. So it doesn't happen all at once, but I mean, you lose a bunch of cells, but you're birthing new cells all the time too. So your field's like that too, and the input to the field that you have no control over is rain, is minerals that come right out of the air, is minerals that come from animal manures, is, I said rain, right? I said rain. What else is there? Oh, and then the whole process of photosynthesis and the life cycle of plants. They germinate, they grow, then they die, and then they decompose, and the field increases with time. And when you add to it, you're kind of managing it, and you're moving it along a little bit faster than you probably than it would happen normally. You could everything that you do on a field, you could accomplish by natural means. I'm not saying that like rock dust is not natural, because it is. It's just that you're adding a concentration of it that's unnatural. And not saying that's bad, but like when we start adding petrochemical fertilizers to the fields, it's definitely unnatural, and a lot of times it's toxic to the bio life that's in the soil. So you may get a jolt out of it when you apply it to a crop, but you're killing a lot that's in the soil, and then you're going to need more the next time. So you get addicted to chemical farming. I never did, but I know that people around me are addicted to it, and this stuff's expensive. Definitely, it's expensive. Where compost is my time and the waste product from my cows, and all of their manure is from hay that I cut right off this field, and then I wind up spreading the manure back on the field, or they spread it themselves when they're grazing out there. So the fields increase. They increase. There is a free lunch. There is a free lunch. The sunshine is free. I don't pay for that yet. Don't let that out, though. The township will be sending me a bill for that. Is there another one?
Yep. Susan wanted to know, at what age can you leave your Pyrenees out at night without being in an enclosure? Ours hasn't been out free roaming at night because of a fear of the coyotes would get them. They've had 4 coyotes come up to the dog cage at night and surround it for hours. They've got 46 acres, and it's not fenced at all. Like he's not fenced off into a part of it or anything like that.
Well, if I had coyotes coming up and surrounding my pen, I'd be whacking them down with a rifle, I think, or a shotgun at night. For one, because that would be a little unnerving to me. But they must realize that the dog can't get them. But I would think a Pyrenees would make mincemeat out of a scrawny little coyote. So at what age can you leave them out alone? Is this Susan that called me today?
Susan Latrine?
Because they've got 46 acres too.
Oh.
Well, ours have been, I mean, when our puppies are born,
And
they're out from the time that they're born, forever. So there's never a time where we're worrying for their lives so we don't leave them out. But they're here with their mother and their father too. And, we've had the Pyrenees here for so long is that we have sort of a perimeter. About the only animals that breach that right now are skunks. And it's because skunks are new every year. They're not like a 5-year-old skunk. They don't live that long. Gee,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I just asked her how old he is.
Is he
Now.
a year old?
I don't know. I just asked. The other solution to that, if it's that extreme, the kid that we know that has an extreme coyote problem got 2, so that they can have each other's backs.
2 Pyrenees, yeah.
2 Pyrenees, and they do successfully keep the coyotes away from his piglets and away from his sheep,
Yeah.
but it took the 2 of them.
Although the other day, his uncle was down here and he told me that a fox got into their hen house and killed like 30 of their laying hens. And he was like,
a fox.
well, where was the Pyrenees? But I think it was one of those deals where the fox could get in, but the Pyrenees could not because it was a small hole. So,
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
it's like
I don't know.
anything if it can sneak by. But the dog should be able to hold his own, by the time he's even 9 months old.
Yeah.
And it may be that since he can't defend himself, the coyotes are just totally brazen.
Yeah. And you might want to start looking at some other methods. If you've got coyotes that are coming right to his pen and then dancing around outside of there, you could put some leg hold traps down and pick them right up and then just dispose of them. If you got that many of them, I think you got too many of them, but I can't, why would a coyote take on a Pyrenees? Because coyotes live for their stomachs and, breeding. So I can't understand why they would want to take on a Pyrenees.
Oh, this is Susan.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. With him killing our chickens and ducks, he's been in his enclosure during the day, but I wanted to be able to allow him out during the night when the birds are in their coops.
Yeah.
And he is almost a year. Yep.
I think you should do that, Susan. I think you should secure your chickens and then let him out and then work on some of the training things that we talked about. And I want to talk to you again about that because I've had some time to think about it. But it was definitely like you were almost training him
To be cranky.
to be that way, I mean, if you look at it from his point of view. And I think that can be reversed at this point. But we'll have to talk about that again.
Okay, yeah. Nick wanted any tips on stopping gilts from smashing pigs. He's got wrong thing.
Smashing pigs?
Yeah. He's got red wattle mixed with Berkshire pigs. He uses a 4x8 box with a bumper board at the back.
Oh, from laying on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an age-old question, Nick. All right, some of the things that cause that is if the sow is really heavy, if she's really big, they just can't navigate. They just lay down and they're so big, and it takes so much effort for them to get back up that I don't think they don't want to get back up, and they hear something crying, but they just know, well, it's going to stop in a minute. So we keep all of our Mangalitsa sows, we keep them out on pasture all the time. So I try to keep their weight down. I don't put them on an automatic feeder. We hand feed them every day, and that's an effort to keep their weight a little bit lower. And then when they get big, it's time to replace them. That's how I do it, because a really big sow winds up laying on pigs a lot. The other way you can do it, if you're gonna, I don't know if you're working in a barn or not, don't use heat lamps, but if you can get a heat pad, the babies, when they're a little bit older, they will be drawn to the heat pad and they'll go lay on that. But that takes time. Maybe you just need to switch to Mangalitsa pigs, because they're excellent mothers, and they very rarely do they lay on a baby. These pigs are like
Oh, you remember the other
very
thing?
low maintenance.
Yeah. When we used the farrowing crates long ago.
Oh.
Oops. You don't need a picture anyway. Um, we had problems with the sows when they were in a containment situation. They were much more lackadaisical than when we had them out on pasture.
Yeah.
When they had to be responsible and they had their nest that they wanted, and that we had fewer problems, especially once we got away from the white pigs. The white pigs were always bad mothers, but they also did better in the summer when they could be outside and build a nest and do the pig things.
Yeah.
So that may be an option, is just take them out of the boxes and put them in a deep straw hut situation.
Here's what I do. Here's how I do mine. And I tempt failure is what I do
He
with my
says
pigs.
they're out in the woods.
Out in the woods?
So then I'm not sure where the box comes in.
It sounds like he's just using like a porta hut with a
Okay.
box situation in it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
If it's happening a lot, I mean, that's not a good mom. I mean, if out of 10 you're getting squashed, 2, and it happens every other time, I don't think that's such a bad thing, and there's really nothing you can do unless you were going to be right there. When a big sow lays down on a pig and it can't get away from her,
Yep, first time mom.
if you were there, there's not much you can. Oh, first time mom. Hopefully she's not big. If she's small, then she should do better next time. And did she have a big litter the first time?
Yeah, 'cause
Did
sometimes
she have a
that
big one?
stresses them
Yeah,
out.
if they have a really big litter, they get stressed out. My philosophy, and I take a lot of heat on this, but it's worked out good for me.
And it came from an old pig farmer.
It did?
Your breeding philosophy?
It did. I thought I made it up.
Oh,
I thought it was an observation. Well, I don't care who gets the credit for it, so long as it's me, but
there you go.
What?
So what's your philosophy?
Okay. A lot of times in like university books, you read that they should be 13 months before you breed them. And if you say, "Oh no, I breed my sows when they're 6 months old," and you say it on the internet, there's a bunch of people on the internet that are experts on pigs, and they will just hammer you. They'll beat you about the head and shoulders with a stick about that. But if you let them breed when they first come in, which is what they would do if they were out in the wild, as soon as that sow menstruated, she would be bred. Then she's only going to have a few eggs come down, and so she'll have a small number of babies, like maybe 4. And for a first timer, she goes into her trance to have her babies, and when she comes out, she's got 4 babies, and they're all nursing, and it's like, hey, okay, I see how this works. instead of she goes into her trance and she wakes up and there's 10 babies running all over her and squealing and fighting and all that stuff. And she's like, what happened? Where did I, I'm in another world. And then she winds up freaking out, standing up, laying down, standing up, moving around, snapping at them. Then they wind up eating some of them, So I think the thing to do is breed them as soon as you possibly can on their first cycle. You'll have a small litter, but that's going to be a good sow. And you may get 10 litters out of her. You may. And if each litter is 10, it's a lot of pigs. It's a lot of pigs. So that's my philosophy.
Yeah, she's about 250-ish and had 12 piglets. So. Yeah,
that's a recipe for disaster right there. Can be. Other people are going to say, oh, no, mine's 300 pounds. And there's, the thing about this is, in homesteading, there's not a textbook answer on anything. And that's part of the problems with some of the, like, especially the Mangalitsa pages. There's almost this thought out there that the way to success is adhering to these principles. That's part of it. You adhere to principles that are tried and true, but then there's things that you're going to observe as this process is unfolding in front of you. So when it happens again, and you have the opportunity to input into it, as like the Adam here in the Garden of Eden, then you give it your best shot. You make the best decision that you can. It's not one of these things where, it's a formula, and if you do it, it's guaranteed to work. It's not guaranteed to work. And even if you do everything you can, it still might not work. I had one a few years ago. I had this sow that was going to go. It was February. Deep bedding. I had a lot of deep bedding. She was out on the field. The wind was blowing. Normally around here, the wind blows out of the southeast. So this particular night, so I went out there and I clocked the porta hut so that the corner of the porta hut was going to be breaking the wind. And the wind swung around and came down out of the north. And whenever it comes out of the north here, it's really cold. And I kind of know because I wake up in my room really cold because I'm on the north side of the house. And I woke up that morning really cold. And first thing I did is I went out, checked the pigs, and there was 6 beautiful little pigs frozen solid. And the mother was out walking around trying to figure out what was going on. These pigs were perfect, but the temperature was so low and the wind was so direct into that porta hut that they didn't stand a chance. And I made a video of that because I thought that was helpful for people to see that, even when you think you've done everything right, something can happen and now you got 6 dead pigs. At the time, I was in farming for way over 25 years at least, and I'd had a lot of disappointments, and I took it in stride. I put all the baby pigs on the top of the porta hut, and I went in and I had a cup of coffee, and I didn't, it didn't faze me that bad. But when I first started off, it was devastating to see something like that. But that's what we say around here. That's farming, and that is farming. So.
Yeah, I have a marketing question for you, but I'm going to go to a related question first. So we'll get back to the marketing question.
Okay.
Bravo 74 wanted to know, what's the dimension of your pig huts, and are roll bars necessary, meaning the bars that prevent the mothers from rolling on the little ones?
My porta huts come from Farm Tech, and they're 5 by 8. And in Farm Tech, they call them calf hutches. All right, so they're like $400 the last time I bought them. Well worth the money. They're made out of some polycarbonate material, and they have a steel structure inside, and they are tough, and they are repairable. And you need something that's tough and repairable when you have big sows that are going to just scratch on them and push them around and all that stuff. The only mod that we made to it is we took a 2x12 and bolted it across the front, right down on the ground. And what that does is it keeps the structure from flopping out. You'll see if you go through and you see some of my porta huts on videos and stuff. There's a lot of videos on this. And it also prevents the really young pigs from walking out of the porta hut. You want to give them a few days in with mom before they get out. So we use a 2x12, and when they're old enough to climb over that, they're good to go. So, no, the roll bars, I don't use them. I don't use them. What I do is I'll have a congregation of sows that are all going to go about the same time. I'll set porta huts out there for them. Generally, they will not be interested in the porta huts until it's time for them to start making nests for their babies, and I will put a round bale of straw out there for them. And then they'll go and they'll bite the round bale, and they'll take the straw out, and they'll take it back to the hut, and they'll build a nest, and that gets them prepared for their instinctive time of birthing. And it used to be we would be checking them all the time and making sure everything's going okay, and a level of stress. But anymore, I'll check them once. If it's moving forward and sailing along, I won't check them again until I see them out running around, because I don't do it anymore. I don't need to. They're pretty reliable. The Mangalitsa mix is pretty reliable. And then in the summertime, they don't use the porta huts. They'll just make a nest out of whatever is out there on the field. And I have a video that shows a mother pig made a nest out of a bunch of green stuff. It was a beautiful nest. She was able to get in it, have her babies, and it repelled water off the top. It was really spectacular to see that. And the next time I saw her, she came up to feed, and she had 8 or 10 little pigs running along behind her. So that's when farming is paying off, because each one of those little pigs is worth something. And she did it without too much of my help, and we didn't have the losses but that's maybe the majority of the time. That's 80% of the time. But then there are the times when you lose a litter. It's just like, where did they go? And obviously somebody consumed them. So we don't know what causes it, and I've asked around, and people have theories about why pigs are eating their young, but I don't think anybody really knows. I really don't. I've had people tell me it's their diet. They're not getting enough iron. They're not getting enough protein and all that stuff. I don't know.
But the one old farmer said that he never did figure it out.
He never did, right?
And it was
Roger
the same observation you had.
Nope.
Yep.
Just never knew. All you can do is give her another try, and if she keeps doing it, then make her into sausage. Probably tastes like piglet.
On a roll tonight.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the marketing question, and this is the last one I have tonight. How would you go about contacting chefs with your Mangalitsa products? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I've done that. I've sold a lot of Mangalitsa to chefs, and I don't do it anymore. And here's why. Well, you're talking about chefs, restaurant chefs, I would assume. And here's why. Chefs get a listing from Gordon Food Supply and Food Service of America and whoever else is out there and big into the food distribution. And they're going to have pork on there by the cut, and it's going to be 50% cheaper than what you can produce your Mangalitsa for. And so that's a problem. They're going to be looking at the price that they get it of this CAFO pigs to the price of this great Mangalitsa that you have. Now maybe you'll have a chef that has tried Mangalitsa and says, "Oh, this is great. My customers will like this. I can make money with this." But will his customers pay, you know, $18 for a plate with a pork chop on it? That's a question. And he may find out the hard way that they're not gonna. But then you're gonna have the chef say to you, "Yeah, well, I only want pork chops." Yeah, but chef, what am I supposed to do with the rest of the pig? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Food service guy doesn't ask me that. So that's the problem that you have. You wind up with, you know, your chefs always want the cuts that sell really well, and you wind up with a bunch of stuff that doesn't. So that's a logistical problem that you have to overcome, and I get tired of trying to overcome that. I really did. So what we did is we went to a model where we sell halves and wholes, and we sell them to our neighbors and our friends and people that we don't know that want to buy halves and wholes. And that way, if somebody buys a half a pig, they get the whole half a pig, and I don't have anything left behind in my freezer. Everything is going to that person. And what's beautiful about that is, let's say you decide that you've got to get $3.50 a pound for your Mangalitsa pig, and that includes processing. So you're really going to be getting $3 a pound, and the 50 cents, you know, you won't get that. The processor will get that, unless you're going to do them yourself. Then you're going to be getting $3 a pound for this pig hanging weight. That's not bad. And that's going directly to the end user, the person that's buying that half a pig from you. So if a chef wants to buy it, a half a pig like that, he can. But you don't sell pork chops. You don't do that. You don't break it down, because then you get stuck with a bunch of stuff that you don't want. And if the chef is willing to do that, then I'd sell it to him. Sure, I'll sell it to anybody that wants it, if they'll take it like that. But generally, the chef is going to have to bring your price down in order to meet his price point, and they don't like to do that. So I don't like to deal with them anyway. And the model that I have now, I don't have any licenses from the state at all. So all of my sales are direct to friends and neighbors, and I don't need any kind of license. So I can do the processing here if I want to. So my recommendation to you would be, don't sell to chefs unless they come to your door and kiss you on both cheeks and say, "Please sell it to me." Then I would. But you're better off developing a database of your own of people that would want the finest pig in the world. And when you have pigs that you've taken in for slaughter and you bring them home, you know, you can send out a mass email. And then if you want to, if you want to, I mean, it's between you and the people you're selling it to. If you want to sell them a quarter of a pig, a mixed quarter, you could call it, you can do it. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. As a matter of fact, I recommend you don't ask anybody's permission, because if you're going to sell a puppy to somebody, you don't go and ask permission from your county or your state or anything like that, or the U.S. You don't do that. You just sell it. It's no different. It's no different. If you want to sell a cucumber out of your garden to somebody, it's no different. People are led to believe that they have to be licensed and certified and all this stuff, but that's not true. That's not true. You just keep it between you and your customers, and you're going to be okay. Then you're selling retail. When you sell to a chef, you got to sell wholesale. But if you want to do it just for fun, you go in the back door of the restaurant and say, "Is the chef here, please?" And don't come during mealtime. Don't go during mealtime, because that's when the chef's busy. If you want to do it, I did lots of it. I was in the back door of a lot of restaurants selling Mangalitsa, and I don't do it anymore. And when I quit doing it, they didn't chase me down for it. So they don't. Now the other type of chef that you might want to approach, I had one call me the other night, is a personal chef. And this is for somebody that is raising, or that is cooking for, what's that kid's name? Mark Zuckerberg, right? If he's cooking for him, Zuckerberg's not really too concerned about the budget on these pigs. So then you can sell them for what they're worth. Now, a personal chef like that, that's a good deal. That's a real good deal. So you might want to court some of them. I don't know how you do that. Zuckerberg, he's around. I think you can probably get a hold of him. Probably on Facebook. Was there another question? All right. Well, we're going to close it up for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Please like, share, and all that stuff so we get a bigger footprint. We like the 8 o'clock. We're going to keep going. Yeah, we'll see you next week. Get out there and get